Hey, Tyler Childers, welcome to eTown. So good to hear you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Great songs, and there's so much in them. There's so much story and place, and we get the feeling that we're kind of getting to know this part of coal country that you're describing in most of these songs, anyway. Wow. And in some cases, it's pretty bleak.
That's life.
That's life, yeah. Well, it's funny because those of us who don't live there or didn't grow up there, when people talk about coal country, they talk about usually the fact that there's not as many jobs as there used to be, and there's a epidemic of drug abuse going on. Those are like the things that people who don't know think about. Now, of course, that's just like people talk about Boulder, they think about legal weed and Birkenstocks. It's like that's a lot more happens here than those two things, right? Yeah,
a lot more happens than those two things. When there's bad weather, people want to complain about it. But there were. That's true. But there's a lot more stuff than that going on.
But your dad worked in the coal industry, right?
Yeah, he did for a long while. Yeah. I'm 27. I'd say he was there for 21, 22 years. So it put food on my table for as long as it was around, I guess.
Had his dad also been in coal, or
no? His dad worked at a factory. They made a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
They made like the bases for trophies, those little fancy marble bases.
Right.
And a bunch of other stuff I can't remember.
Yeah. And your mom was a nurse, right?
Yep. She's a nurse at Johnson County Health Department.
Yeah. Well, that's and those are two good jobs, to have parents that are both working. That meant you and your family were doing well.
Yeah, I was extremely blessed to have the parents that I did that raised me the way that they did, and they were both blessed to have extremely good jobs for that area, for sure.
And then, did I make that up about singing in church? Was that something you did a fair amount of?
No, you didn't make it up.
Yeah. No. And so when I think about your singing, and it's got that kind of great, like a sort of the break in your voice that like Hank Williams had, but only more raw and kind of rough. That didn't come from church. Where did you discover that you knew how to do that? How old were you when you figured that out? That you could sing like that.
I don't know.
It's a great sound, is all.
Thanks, man. Yeah. I used to do a lot of. I really liked Long Gone Lonesome Blues, Hank Sr. So I'd sit around going,
yeah,
almost exactly like that.
But that was when you were 5, and then it got better. Yeah.
Well, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't do it too good just now. So.
And then the writing thing was just just paying attention, right? Just observing and adding some stuff, I suspect.
Yep. Just I've always enjoyed writing. Spent a lot of time reading with my grandpa when I was younger. That was something we did a lot of together. Every time I go over to his house, he was like, "What book you reading?" "Okay, well, we're going to read it together." And be like, "Come on, I want to go outside." And be like, "Nope, we're going to sit down and read at least this much." So I've always had a passion for literature and writing my own stuff. And then,
how did you do that with your grandfather, by the way? Would you have 2 copies of the book and read, or would you read out loud, or how?
No, we just read out loud.
Yeah, so trade back and forth.
Yeah, we popcorn it,
Wow.
So make sure I was paying attention.
What kind of books?
We read a lot of Laura Ingalls Wilder and Jesse Stewart. I was a big fan of Jesse Stewart. My grandma actually took care of, was one of the nurses taking care of Jesse Stewart there in his last days when he was at King's Daughters Medical Center.
Wild.
So
wild. Yeah. Wendell Berry, Kentucky author. Did you ever pay attention to his stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's cool to have that tradition of reading and a multi-generational tradition of reading. Again, that's like winning the lottery for a young person, just to have that be part of your world. That's very cool. What about favorite musicians? Did your folks listen to music at home and have favorite musicians?
Yeah. My dad was a big Skynyrd fan.
Yeah.
Big CCR. Hell yeah. I don't know if I can say that. CCR, Jim Croce, Alabama, Hank Jr. So when I was little, I got in his closet and found his cassettes, and that was it.
Wow.
That kind of encouraged me. I'd got a guitar when I was 5, but I didn't spend much time playing it. I was big on baseball. I had dreams of being a starting bench warmer. And I found his cassettes in his closet and started listening to them. And then I I got really hooked on CCR, and I started like taking my coat rack and using it as a guitar and running around the room and like using it as also as a microphone and somewhere in there I was like, this would be a lot cooler if this wasn't a coat rack. So here we are.
You got a dream. You got to start somewhere. You got a dream. Well, and speaking of dreaming, there is a lot to be said for, the power of thought and having a vision and have a clear picture of what the future might bring. And the kind of success that you're experiencing right now, which is well-deserved and seems like it's happening all over the place. Did you picture that? Did you ever kind of see that as something that would happen, or was it just more about the songs for you?
I mean, it's been nice, no doubt, but I've just always wanted to play and reach whatever platform I could, and I've been extremely lucky to be at the right place at the right time, a time or two.
Well,
and so yeah.
You've also written some really good songs. Let's not forget
that. I appreciate that.
And in speaking of reading again, I know that it helps as a writer to read and take in language and turn of phrase and all that stuff. But in amongst all the moonshine and the cocaine and the troubles, I understand you also read like Ram Dass's "Be Here Now" and things like that. So it's a more sort of Eastern mystical, spiritual side of things, right?
Yeah, you got to balance it all out,
Yeah.
Can't all be moonshine and cocaine. So. There is the next morning.
Well, and in all fairness, and with good reason, there's a lot of love songs too. I mean, there's a lot of really beautiful love songs in amongst your canon at this point. I know that I mentioned earlier that the record Purgatory was kind of a breakout for you, and Sturgill Simpson's involvement as co-producer with Dave Ferguson. That was a cool happenstance, wasn't it? Just to have a friend of a friend come to one of your shows. Is that how it went down?
I met Sturgill at a bingo hall.
In a bingo hall.
Yeah. There's a bingo hall not far outside of Estill County, Kentucky. And before I told this story, it used to be one of Sturgill's favorite places to get away. It's true. I met him and gave him a demo and an email, and he got hold of me the next day.
Yeah. And I mentioned we were talking backstage that I was just in Nashville this last week and doing some recording at the same place, the Butcher Shop, which is just a cool kind of funky, vibey.
I love it.
It's so cool. Just like it's so unfancy, but it sounds great.
I love it. It's great. A lot of those places, a lot of those studios in Nashville, you go in and it kind of reminds me of those places I go in with my mother as a child, and she'd be like, "Now you can look, but don't you touch anything." It's very, clean. And in the basement, not the basement, sorry, the Butcher Shop, which is in a basement, you don't have that vibe. You can ash on the carpet. So I don't smoke, but I like that option.
And you're going to think... Yeah, you're going to think twice about sitting on the couch there even, So.
Yeah, probably not.
No, but it's cool. And he put together such a good team. I mean, Mike Henderson and Stuart Duncan, and just an awesome sounding record. And now there's live records that you just re-released, right? Tell me about those.
Yeah, I did Red Barn Radio in Lexington, Kentucky. I've done it 3 times, but the first 2 times, the first time was with this bluegrass unit I was running around with called the High Wall. And actually, Jesse, that plays fiddle with me now, was in that band. And then the Red Barn 2 was solo. But there were 2 separate EPs that I was running around with for a while. I had an earlier album I came out with when I was 18, and it had 10 or 12 songs. Excuse me. And I think I was selling them for 12, and I was going around gigging and road dogging wherever I could. And I was having a hard time getting people that really didn't know my music to pay $12 for an album. But then I started selling these EPs, and they were 4 tracks a piece, and I was selling them for $5. And they were like, well, heck, give me 2 of them. I was like, awesome. There's 2 of the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So I was extremely grateful that Red Barn let me take those recordings and put them on an EP and
Yeah.
gave me something to keep me afloat between odd jobs.
And now it's remastered, out on vinyl. Do you have fan base that prefers more the acoustic side as opposed to more the electric side, or is it's same tunes and the same still you?
Everybody's got their own opinion, so I don't know. I'm sure there's people that like one better than the other.
Yeah.
I like what I'm doing right now, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, we do too. Well, listen, we're on. I am curious about the part of the world where you live, just because we think about coal country, and I know that there are people who are hurting and people who are wishing they had better jobs or better opportunities, or that the schools were better or whatever. And sometimes it's hard to find hope in those situations. I don't know if you think or if you keep in touch with any of your friends from high school, and are there some people who are in some ways in your mind just really struggling with that? Just what are they going to do next?
I mean, yeah, just as much as there is everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great things happen to be said about where I'm from. There's a lot of people that are starting to take initiative. You know, for a long time, if you weren't going to be a coal miner, a doctor, or a lawyer, you know, a lot of our best and brightest moved elsewhere. You know, I'm sure some of them moved here, moved wherever to find job opportunities. And you know, it's a lot like soil. If you keep on taking nutrients and don't put back in, then eventually it's just going to be
Played out.
Yeah. And but there's been a lot of people starting to care about home. You know, taking pride in where they're from. I believe there's a company that's making solar panels and installing them in Ashland, and you know, it takes people like that to take a risk in a place and start creating job opportunities. We took a pretty heavy hit, you know, as a people, because our whole entire economy was based around coal. You know, I mean, even if you weren't directly in coal, if you were, you know, some gas station that
Right.
sold biscuits and gravy on the way to a place, you know, and you were dependent on all these miners going to work to stop in your station and just, you know, get their supplies for the day, get their food, you know, I mean, steel, huge equipment, and all these people were employing just hardworking individuals.
Yeah.
And then once, you know, the thing that held the whole thing together went down, that was that. But it's, you know, I mean, we've had a time or two in our history where our identity has changed, and that's just where we're at. That's where we've been born in this place. You know, I mean, originally we were like this first West. You know, you have to be crazy to move out there and try to settle this area, and then a bunch of crazy people went out there and did that, and their identity was, you know, we're frontiersmen. And then people over on the East Coast started realizing the wealth of what's the word? There's words.
The resources.
Resources.
Yeah.
That's the word. The wealth of resources. I'm not a history teacher or anything.
No, we don't need to go too
somewhere.
deep here. It's a beautiful part of the country, and I've been lucky enough to spend some time in Eastern Kentucky and hitchhiking around and playing music and meeting people, and I love the example of staying in the energy business but shifting from coal to making solar panels, because there's a bunch of people who want to work hard and get a good job. So
Yeah, well,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that was going back to what I was saying a minute ago when I tripped up on resources, but it's like that was our identity. We started becoming loggers, and then we realized what was underneath the soil, and our identity was miners, and now we're at that point where we can't let this identity that we've not really even had that long hold us back. And it's going to take some change.
Yeah.
Scary, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it helps. I mean, I have to be really honest, Tyler. I think it really helps for people like you to shine a light and tell the stories and invite us in to get to know that part of the world a little bit and get to know the stories and the characters, and because there's an obvious reason for us all to connect, and we just need to try a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for writing these great songs. We've got lots more music to get to. Would you help me welcome back Tyler Childers?